Four, three, two.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. Deborah Kobylt live today. I appreciate it on a sunny day here in Los Angeles, California. On the phone with me right now, I've got Victor Johnson, the author to. There we go. Got a giant studio audience for you, Victor. You hear them all in there?
They love me. They love me already.
Let me just say something. We record across the street from where Ellen does her show. They all come over here afterwards. So we got a big audience over here. Anyway, proven pathways to wealth and happiness, mindset, real estate, results. I love this book. I also love the cover. It's beautiful. Looks like a sunny day in California. I love that very, very much. Thanks for tuning in and coming on the show with us. Victor, I want to know first, why did you write this book?
Well, I wrote the book because my personal story is one of that I think will motivate a lot of people. I started out living check to check, have a very low credit score, really didn't understand how to manage my money when I did start making additional money and making these bigger dollar amounts. And so I felt like it was a time for me to write a book that explains the story and the path that I took to get my finances together, to get my credit together, and ultimately to get me into real estate investing. And so I have no college degree. I'm pretty much a self-taught guy. I went to 1 year in college, and I pretty much just became a very voracious reader and started researching and networking. And I got to a point where I was making more money, had better credit. And I just want to inspire other people that kind of have followed my path or that are where I was 7, 8 years ago when I was living check to check.
Yeah, not only that, let's talk a little bit. You filed for bankruptcy. You didn't like that too much. You're saying to yourself, Victor, this is not the way you want to live. And you started reading. Tell me about some of the authors and books that inspired you.
So one of my favorite books and most inspirational books is a book called Think and Grow Rich. It's actually a Black choice, which was written by Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. It is of the series from Think and Grow Rich that was written by Napoleon Hill. So that was definitely one of the books. He outlines a lot of stories about people that kind of went from rags to riches, stories about Oprah Winfrey's in there, and a slew of people that kind of had a very humble beginning and ultimately found success and overcame their financial obstacles. That's a huge one for me. I love reading books by Suze Orman and Dave Ramsey and, anything about finances and or real estate related stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there by Grant Cardone that I've been checking out lately. So those are the type of people that I read.
Well, what I love about your story, and again, you and I spoke quite a bit over the phone, you were going down a path in your life that you didn't like. And instead of going a little deeper, you dug in as a self-taught man and read from people that you respected, and you took your advice. Like, there's a lot of steps that people have to realize if they're going down a path, and a lot of us go down a path we're not happy with, right? Whether it's finance or whatever. You just one day have to take a pause and just say, I'm going to do something different. Isn't that what happened with you?
That's exactly what happened with me. A slew of repeated events that were all related to poor management of money just caused me to say, you know what, I got to get back on track. I need to get focused. I started confronting my debts, changed my mindset, and basically put me on a path that helped me increase my earnings.
I like to hear people's stories because it inspires other people who feel like they're spiraling out of control. What was going on in your life, very briefly, if you could tell us?
Well, I was a bill collector for my profession for several years, from probably 22 years old till about 32, 33 years old. And so I would have these massive bonus checks once a month. And so I was the guy that was very well off for 3 days. And then for the next 12 days to the next payday, I was completely broke. So that was a horrible way to live. But there were just these things that were happening to me that I just didn't like. And then I got married, and I basically blended a family. My wife at that time, she was my girlfriend, had a 9-year-old daughter. And I already had teenage kids that were, 13, 14, and 16. So bringing them together and actually having a foundation, a house and everything, I realized, hey, I can't even buy a house, at least not at the best rate that I need, because my score is at a 540 or 550, whatever. So that was a big point of change for me. And that was right around the time I had filed bankruptcy in 2008 and kind of bounced back, or started to bounce back after that.
Right. But again, you made the decision to bounce back the right way. So, people go in all sorts of directions, and you know that. So,
True.
a little bit I love. Chapter 1 in your book, mindset change. I love that because it really does start with your mind, right? You were telling me a little about that on the phone. Could you explain that a little more?
So a lot of times we get caught up on our own struggles because of the way we think of things or because of experiences that we've had that we assume that because someone else went through that and they had this particular outcome that it's going to happen for me the same way. But what I found is that for me and for many people that if I can plant a seed in my mind for a goal that I have in mind, or especially if I can tie a specific date and a specific outcome to it, my mind starts to cultivate around that idea, and it starts to bring people, ideas, scenarios into my life that will help me to achieve that goal. And so in this chapter, I speak about specifically about the subconscious mind, how you can, a lot of things that you read right before you go to sleep, they're kind of marinating in your brain. And at the same time, when you first wake up, those first 10 minutes you wake up, if you can kind of set your brain on a path for the day, it really will dictate a lot of your outcomes. And so that first chapter, I thought it was a great point to start out with. Hey, you got to have the right mentality. You have to have the right mindset in order for you to move forward with the goals that you've set for yourself.
It's interesting you said that because depending upon what I read or what I'm looking at before I go to bed, I'll dream about it. So there's definitely something about that. I mean, whatever's in your head before you're going to sleep, it's still there while you're sleeping. And then when you wake up, I mean, do you meditate for a few minutes when you wake up? Because I do find that valuable. However people meditate, it doesn't have to be, in an open field with the whole but just something where you're thinking.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Where you're thinking good positive thoughts, good energy, gratitude.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are the things that attract more of those same type of things to your life. And so having that attitude and that mindset is definitely the way to go. And people don't realize that, as you said, you're dreaming of things when you're sleeping, but your mind is still working whether you're asleep or not. And so if you can plant the right things into that mind, it starts to cultivate into your body and into all of your actions that you take when you're awake.
I like also you talk about a vision board, right? What's a vision board for people who might not know?
So vision board is basically a board that you may post up on your wall or on the back of a door or something in your house where you have specific pictures of goals that you pursue for yourself. There's some people that may be a specific type of vehicle that they always wanted to drive. And so they keep a picture of that vehicle, that Corvette, right at the top of their vision board. And they're always looking at it in the morning and in the night before they go to bed. And again, their mind will start to do things and gravitate them towards that vehicle. It's the same with, if you had a certain house or a certain income, I write all those things on my vision boards and I put very specific pictures or images of those things. And if your mind can see it, then your mind can conceive it, and that helps to bring those things into fruition if you visualize them first.
So that's very much about, what is it, chapter 5, setting goals, achieving goals. It's sort of that whole vision board, setting your goals. And I always tell people, because some people will ask me for advice, I say, look, it's okay to have a goal and you're just having a tough time attaining it. Do your best to get there. And maybe sometimes having a goal, you need to change a little and have a different goal. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. And sometimes you have the right goal, but you haven't done all of the proper steps to get that goal achieved. For example, I'm big on protecting my space, meaning that if I have a certain goal and I want to make sure that all the people and things around me are in support of that goal. So I try to gravitate away from anybody that has a negative idea or is shooting negativity at me like, that's not going to work for you. Yeah, I abandon all of those type of people away from me while I'm in this transformation stage. And that's a big part of it as well, Deborah. You gotta protect that space and make sure that only positive things, grateful things are coming into you while you're trying to work through that transition.
Yeah, it's funny you said that you've got to trust your instinct, right? Like when you said you'll make sure that those types of influences are not in your space. Trust your instinct, right? If it doesn't feel right, or if people keep saying, "Oh, this is going to happen, this is going to," it doesn't happen. It just means, well, maybe it's never going to happen, and you move on. You have to, right?
Right, you do, absolutely. Sometimes you set the wrong goal in the beginning, and I talk about that in that same chapter, chapter 5, whereas you have to set the goal with the end in mind. And if you haven't really thought through the details of that at the beginning of the step, you may have miscalculated what your needs are. And yeah, you could be right. You may have to readjust the goal along the path.
In chapter 7, you talk about being likable and networking and building relationships. What would you say for people who are actually really shy and they have a tough time going out there and doing that?
That's a great question. So to start out, I think it's definitely beneficial in today's time that we have other methods to communicate to people. You have social media, you have email, you have text messaging. So it may be best for some people that are not as excited about going to do face-to-face interacting and meeting with people. You might start out with just reaching out to people through Instagram or through Facebook and start a rapport that way where you're kind of communicating along similar common interests with each other through your social media. That builds a rapport. Maybe they say something to you that really resonates with you and gets you more comfortable. Then you can kind of expand it into, hey, it'd be great to meet you, especially if you're in the same city or something, or if you're traveling to a city that you know that person's in. It just makes it a little bit easier for you to meet them since you've already had some interaction. So I would encourage anybody that is shy or doesn't typically like to meet people face-to-face as their first interaction to try using social media. Try reaching out through email. Or, the other issue that some people have is they meet people pretty well, but they are horrible at the follow-up, and so
what do you do for what do you do for that?
These tools are great ways.
What do you do for the follow-up?
Yeah,
the social media, actually,
I would
you're right.
probably stick along those same lines. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. But you're right. The social media, the emailing is great. And also for me, I've got to make a list because if I have literally 40 things to do in a day, if I don't make that list, 30 will get done or even 20. And also to pare down my list. Do you agree with that? Like, just don't put too much on there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I have one of my favorite things to do, Deborah, is in the mornings when I come to my office, I actually, for the day, if I haven't already written out the things I need to do, I'll go ahead and jot down the critical things that I need to accomplish for the day. I love marking slashes through those little dashes in front of those goals. It just drives me crazy to not see them checked off. So it's a good way to motivate me to stay moving throughout the day.
Also, health. That's really important. Sometimes I'll do business or talk to someone. They almost don't look healthy. I think that's very important to try and make yourself as fit as you can. This does not mean looking like a supermodel, but it just means being as fit as you can, right? Because when you have that, your mind is a little clearer, right?
Absolutely. And if your goal is to focus on your finances, having good health is one way to save a lot of money. If you're not paying for monthly prescriptions for this or that, or some type of treatment for this, you can keep a lot of that money in your household. So in addition to not carrying any additional burdens, physical burdens that, again, are causing you to go to the doctor a lot and paying copays. But the main thing you mentioned is you just feel better. You feel productive. You feel confident. Feel like you can take on any obstacle that comes your way if you're physically able to, if your body functions the way that it's supposed to.
So you really cleared the table, if you will. You really sort of got your life in order with a lot of grit, a lot of determination. I mean, you had to work hard. And now you've amassed a bit of a fortune, if you will, through real estate. Can you tell us how you did that?
Yes. So through a lot of the things we just talked about over these last 10 minutes or so, I got my mind right. I started attracting better things to me. I started setting proper goals and taking care of my health and doing my daily habits. And I just started I got a job. I had a phone call with somebody in 2013, about a 45-minute phone call for a previous employer that I was with. And we were trying to sell these loans to this other company. Long story short, that 45-minute conversation turned into me getting a job with that company 4 months later, and it increased my earnings by $40,000 per year. So At that point, I had already tackled many of my debts and started saving a little bit of money. So I was sitting there like, well, how can I put my money to work as hard as I do? And again, by adjusting my mindset, I started listening to like talk radio and just absorbing wherever I could find ways to increase my money. Came across a radio commercial that offered like a real estate class for the weekend, a real estate investing class. And of course, you get there and they do the 2-day thing, and then they say, "Hey, we can make you a millionaire and it with $10,000 overnight, or whatever." So
And you're like,
I didn't
okay.
have that kind of money to invest in that, right? So
So you
we
did it
decided, my
yourself.
wife and I.
So you figured out
We
how to do
taught
it
we
yourself.
Well, we took the 2-day and we basically became, real estate investors with the 2-day class as opposed to the additional mentoring that they offered.
So what did you do? You got whatever savings you had and you bought your first place?
So that is part of it. I had scraped up maybe almost $12,000, and it wasn't enough to put down on an investment property because they usually want 20 to 25% down.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is I found out that there are companies out there called hard money lenders. Now this is an expensive loan, but they're not going to look at your credit. They're not as concerned about how much income you necessarily have. They want to know, is that property value going to increase based on the things you told them you would do with that property, as far as fixing the roof or the flooring change out. And they gave me basically 90% of the money that I needed to purchase the home and to rehab the home. And then I had to put my 10 grand was basically, good faith money, and,
Right,
and it paid for
collateral.
half of the rehab.
So once you did that and you rehabbed a house, did you flip it or did you rent it?
So no, my strategy was definitely from the beginning to buy and hold that property for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years, because if at that point I decided to sell it, it would be something where I would be able to keep all of the capital gains or all of the profit that I earned from selling that property. So 2 years later, I did sell it, and I walked away at the closing table with $35,000 from my initial almost $12,000 investment. So
Wow.
that turned out to be a smart move for me, and I paid no taxes on that because I had held it for more than a year.
Since then, what year was this that you did this?
So that was 2015 when I started the investing, and 2017 when we sold that property. So that gave us the resources to continue the expansion. We bought a couple more rental properties. We had a house just outside of Austin, Texas, and I accepted a job in Dallas. So when we moved to Dallas, I was able to rent that house out. So now I've got 3 rental properties instead of the 1. And then last year, just through the savings and the additional earnings we were making, I was able to leverage that into 2 more rental properties.
Wow.
So now we have 5 that are cash flowing each month, and I'm bringing in about $1,500 a month in cash flow or profit on those 5 properties. So it's a pretty good deal.
That's fantastic. I mean, I just think your story and how you're sensible in your approach. You're reaching high, but you're not reaching so high that it's unattainable. And I just think you have goals and you follow each one. But it does start with waking up one day and saying, no more. I'm making a change. And that's hard to do. I've personally been in the situation, not financially necessarily, even though God knows I started with nothing. But in other areas of my life. And one day you wake up, I don't know what it is. You're fed up. You don't want to do it anymore. And you just say, no more. And I applaud everyone to get this book, Proven Pathways to Wealth and Happiness. Is there anything else we can add that maybe we didn't even talk about?
Well, I mean, I think you've pretty much capsulized this entire book in our interview here. I mean, it's one of those stories. It's an easy read, 110 pages or so of this personal story of a guy who basically overcame obstacles to achieve an extraordinary life at this point. And I'm still striving higher, but I just want everybody to visit me at, VictorVJohnson.com, www.victorv, as in Victor, Johnson.com, and check out the book. And, I want to get around and start speaking to people and helping other people. That there's so many people sitting in the state that I was at 5-7 years ago. And I just want to try to inspire them to create their future self. That's kind of what I've been saying around here. Create your future self. You have the ability to do it within your own mindset, and just set proper goals and go after it.
Yeah. And this is just sort of, I call it a how-to book. If you're struggling, you're a woman or a man, and you're trying to figure out, man, I need a little inspiration. You're right. This is sort of an easy read, but it's got great knowledge. There's great information in here. So I would like anyone to just go out and get it. Proven Pathways to Wealth and Happiness. Look you up on your website, Victor V. Johnson. And let us know, would you, if you're going to be speaking anywhere out there. I guess you'll be putting it on your website too, right?
Absolutely. I'll keep that up on my site. And yeah, if anybody's out there that wants to help me get some speaking gigs, I really want to share that all of those key expertise points that I just mentioned in this interview. I'd love to get out and talk to your group and help inspire some people in your organization.
So that's your next move. You really want to get more speaking gigs. I think you're an easy person to go and listen to and watch because you're sensible. A lot of times you go to these speeches and they're just you don't really feel like you can relate. You're a relatable guy. So
Well,
I'm sure
thank you.
that's going to be
I
coming down.
appreciate that very much.
Yeah, that's going to be coming your way, I think, very soon. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. Again, everybody, please pick up the book, Proven Pathways to Wealth and Success by Victor V. Johnson. And again, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate it very much.
Bye-bye. And everybody, thanks so much for tuning in to Deborah Kobylt Live. You can see us on Facebook and YouTube and listen to us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, and just about anywhere else you can find us. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.